It's football season, and that means it's bug season. Heck, who am I kidding? It's always bug season in Texas. And that's why you need Grandeur Pest Solutions in your corner. They're locally owned and operated. They're trained, they're trustworthy, and they have a proven record as they have been in business for almost 10 years. They provide pest control against ants, bed bugs, bees, roaches, fleas, wasps, mosquitoes, rodents, spiders. If it crawls and you don't like it, they're probably going to take care of it for you. Now, they serve all of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and they're locally owned. These two guys have been running this business since 2013, and every year they get bigger and bigger. But you know what they still do? They still have great customer service. In fact, if you get a hold of them, they're usually going to have your quote and your job ready to go within 48 hours. That's pretty good. Now, you can call them for a free estimate at 469-809-1769. You can find them online at Grandeur4, that's the number 4, shore.com.
This is the last call.
Here we go. Here we go.
That will never not be funny to me ever.
Here we go.
Wow, I don't know the last time that we did a recorded show that's not a special look back or anything. This is a special show. I am Terry Bennett. That is intern Noe, the pro commissioner, as this is Drunk Drafting with OutDrank The Coverage. We draft, as you can see, we did a draft earlier before we started recording. And so we kind of wanted to go over the picks and why we put who we did and just have a little fun doing it. Intern Noe, the pro commissioner. How are you doing? And how are you drinking?
I'm doing well, buddy. Drinking 1792 Bottled and Bond. Pretty smooth. Bottled and Bond is just a designation the government gave back when it was all bootlegging and you kind of didn't know what was being put in your whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
So in 1896.
Was that it? So you're saying that is that its government name?
Bottled and Bond.
I feel like I need to. I feel like at some point, I can't believe we haven't done this. We need to We need to have on our drop machine ready to go. Your name is Toby. My name is Kunta. Because I mean, we make that joke so much with each other.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to hell. Is it good?
It's pretty good. It's 50%, and it's smooth. It's everything you want in a bourbon. So I like it. It's pretty affordable. So I recommend it to anybody. Anyway, how are you doing, buddy? What are you drinking?
I'm doing great. I was drinking the last 2 shots of your knob Creek whiskey. Like we'll pause there. And the rest of the night, I am going to be drinking my normal Taka. I was going to be all cool and drink it out of the brand new Suck What, but I think there's something sad about drinking vodka out of a coffee cup. I feel that that's an intervention level thing. I don't know why. Maybe because that happened to me once before. I'm going to talk about that. We will have to one day tell the story of the drunkest intervention that we've ever done for a friend in the history of the world. Worst intervention area. But that's an after dark OutDrank The Coverage. But yeah, I'm drinking my normal Taka, and what we're going to be doing tonight is we're going to be having fun. We drafted earlier. We drunk drafted. Now we're going to drunk talk about it. I think the thing, and this is, I had said this to you before, and I've said this to you many years, because you had asked me a few years ago, before we brought back OutDrank The Coverage, and you had said something about you don't like doing mock drafts, and I do, but I don't know. There's just it's I know this sounds goofy. It's really hard. Like it is really hard to purposely try to get into the mind of every team. Like it's easy for us for the teams we know, Cowboys, the Texans, the Eagles, any of the teams that we just know. But like I even told you, like a team like the Cardinals, I have no hate for the Cardinals. In fact, I have a love for the 70s and 80s St. Louis Cardinals. But I can't. I end up dozing off if I start trying to read their depth chart or what they're doing out there in Arizona. This is really hard to take serious. Oh, and then add some shots and stuff. It gets a little funny early, but I will admit I had a lot of fun doing it.
I did too. It kind of reminds me of fantasy football and the drafting there, but
yeah,
even with that, you're still only concentrating on the offensive side, and then you throw in the defense and kicker at the end. It's kind of cool. I mean, we always talk about what we would do if we were GMs and how we could do it better. And I really think you and I could, but I'm pretty sure millions of other people say that too, so it can be annoying.
Well, and by the way, I think millions of other people could. Look, as somebody that has been on a lot of sides of sports now, including coaching, I think at times we put some of these people that make football decisions because it's our sport and it's our love. And it's like it's a movie star to us. We put them on a higher pedestal. I think there's a lot of people that could do these jobs, and I don't even think you necessarily have to know necessarily sports. You have to know how to acquire the people that help you be the best GM. You want that one dude in the room going, wait, what? Luka for Anthony who? And that's it? No, that's it. Oh, we're going to give them a pick too? Yeah, that's awesome, dude. You need that guy. And so I think a lot of people do. But yeah, I definitely think you and I could. And I know a lot of our listeners, not a lot, but a good core of our listeners is our sports rehab group. I value almost all their opinions too. Except for you, Gary, you're stupid. But like when they're talking about, we have a couple Titans fans. When we were talking to them, they helped me kind of feel. I'm trying to get Mario on. I'm trying to see if he can come on for the live show. I think he wants to wait till after the first pick, probably, and then we can talk about how he cries as they'll trade their first pick for Malik Willis again because now they really believe in him. Which, by the way, he played pretty good in Green Bay. And I'm not going to say that he's going to be breathing down Jordan Love's neck, but if Jordan Love can't find consistency, I think you're going to start getting the old backup quarterback could be just as good for, the Cooper Rush thing. But anyway, so we drafted. I don't really, I said this to you when we first started, and I've talked about this many times since the end of the season. This draft doesn't have the oh my God superstar yet. In saying that, we've got a player in Travis Hunter who could be a generational guy just because of what he does. And I will say this, he didn't make the first pick, but I have a feeling in 15 years, he's the guy everybody's going to go like, why wasn't he the number one pick again? Because I genuinely do. I watched a lot of highlights of him. I try to always not use the word film and tape because I feel like people try to say it like that. I'm sitting there with all 22s and the clicker. No, I went into YouTube and just typed in Travis Hunter highlights 2024 to 2025 or 2023 to 2025. That dude is really good, man. Like, not just athletically. I think the thing people don't understand about him, and partially because there's perceptions of him because of the girlfriend and just the fact that he's at Colorado and under Deion Sanders. He is so smart. He is so technically sound. He doesn't play out of position. He knows the guys. He had a book on all the Big 12 wide receivers. And then he had a bigger book on all the Big 12 corners that he did himself just by simply going to YouTube and typing in, blah, blah, blah player and all that. I think the thing that people are going to be shocked about Travis Hunter is how intelligent he is at the game and how football savvy he is. I legitimately feel like he is going to be a transcendental, all the big words player in the NFL.
Yeah, I agree. He has a motor too, which helps. He has the skill set.
He has a love for the game too, dude.
He has a love for the game. He has a skill set. But if you want to be in the NFL, you need to be a student. You need to study. You need to train, which he does. The only knock on him is his girlfriend, fiance, or whatever she is. I think they're supposed to get married by the time the season starts.
But you know why that doesn't bother me? This is going to sound weird. We're about to go in a really weird spot here on OutDrank The Coverage. So we would like to thank our sponsor, Suckwhat, for this transition. I think he's almost asexual. Like, he's whatever. I'm football. I'm football. I want to play 200 snaps a game. I want to play Fortnite, but not like Kyler Murray because he's a big gamer. I want to do that. I have a hot girlfriend / wife. That's great. I don't think that matters to him. I really do, man. I have become so fascinated by him. Like, I'm not kidding. If it came out on Thursday night, which, by the way, we'll be doing a live draft show brought to you by Kroger's, brought to you by Suckwhat, brought to you by Grandeur Pest Solutions. If they, the third pick, and it was like the New York Giants have traded the pick to the Dallas Cowboys for 2 first-rounders and they took Travis Hunter, I would be freaking ecstatic. Because I think he's going to play both positions. I don't know how long he'll play both positions. I don't know how many snaps he will take at both positions, but I legitimately think this guy could become the first guy that all pros at 2 positions in the same year.
And since you have Deron Bland and Trayvon Diggs on defense, he can play more offense than year one to start if you really want him to.
Did we just talk ourselves into Travis Hunter?
It talked me into it.
No, I've always been interested in him, and I'll be fair. I didn't watch a ton of Colorado, so my perception of him wasn't right. I never thought there like some of the things people tried to really again. We're in a weird time in the world. Some people try to act like he's gangster and stuff, and then you go like, "Have you read about this dude? Like this dude spends hours like playing Lego. Maybe that's why I like him so much. He's like all of us with athletic ability. He's like Henry Cavill is for me because Henry Cavill's a huge gamer. Like that, I love that. I will watch anything he does simply because I know he is a true gamer. Maybe that's what it is with Travis Hunter. But anyway, so what we did after we go on that diatribe, this is why we're calling it draft drunken because drunk draft. I might have already outkicked the coverage there, my friend. But what we did is we drafted. Wait, are we paused? I'm paused on my computer. Oh, there we go. Yeah, we're good. We're good. Just a little burp. So let me go. Now we went ahead and drafted early because we just didn't know how long this would take, and I'm kind of glad we did, so we can kind of just think about it. Originally we said we were going to do like a every other, but I kind of like how we did. We just ended up kind of being the co-GM of each team. And there was a couple times that we disagreed. I will say this. We basically agreed, at least in logic, with every pick.
Yeah. Even the ones that were kind of left field or ones we didn't agree on to start, we kind of understood each other's point and kind of realized, each of our options were good, but we just went with one.
Well, and this is where I said this is where it becomes. Sorry, this is where I said it becomes really hard, and it's one of those things that you don't really realize how hard it is until you actually truly sit down. And that's the thing. We tried to give. We didn't, of course, do like NFL draft. Was it 10 minutes now? 15 minutes? I forget. We didn't do that, but we didn't just try to run through a pick. And the way we did this also is we didn't do any kind of trades, even though some of these picks we'll say where we think they'll actually be. But let's go ahead and start. You can all see it now, so we're not trying to surprise. But I think the biggest, of course, that's going to happen, Tennessee is going to take Cam Ward.
Yeah, you have to. Tennessee, they had the worst record last year, and the glaring issue was quarterback. You kind of feel with a competent quarterback, with some of the improvements they made on the offensive line, that might just be the difference. So get someone that can protect the ball, that can also make big plays. And I think just give Cam Ward some opportunities, like give him some time, but I think he can be your 15-year starter.
Yeah, 100%. So with the number 2 pick, now number 2 and number 3, I feel like could be interchangeable. I think the Giants are happy with either one of these, and I think the Browns would be happy with either one of these. I just feel like the Browns will want to try to keep proving to Miles, like, hey, see what we're doing, or what we're helping you. And I think, I'm not saying Abdul Carter is going to be as good as Micah Parsons, but I don't think he's going to be that far off.
Yeah, I mean, they both went to Penn State. They're both big and fast.
They play the kind of the same style tweener role.
Yeah, and then Penn State's kind of had consistency at the coaching position there with James Franklin. So I'm pretty sure the guy that coached Parsons was the same person that coached Carter, or someone of similar background that was there when Parsons was there. So yeah, I could see Carter I could see Carter go number 1 overall, but we felt that pairing him with Myles Garrett, since you already made the financial commitment to him, there's really not a other quarterback in this draft that's worth that number 2 pick. So you just go with best edge rusher and try to just build off that solid defense. Hopefully you can bring Chubb back at running back and, get back to where you were 2 years ago.
So we spent an ungodly amount of time trying to figure out how to make this big enough to where everybody could see it, and all we had to do was just look up, and there's the percentages of this thing. So now everybody can see that one better. Yeah, I totally agree with everything on that. I don't know about the Chubb part. I think God, that's going to be the dude that career there's always 3 or 4 per every 5 to 10 years, and he's that one. I'm not going to say he was ever going to challenge Emmitt Smith, because I don't know if we're in an era of running will that ever be close. But I think that Nick Chubb, if he'd have been fully healthy, was a guy that was going to end up in the top 4 or 5 in rushing yards.
Yeah, I mean, It's kind of shocking what consistency can do for you. Because think about Frank Gore; he got 16,000 yards
That's a
exactly,
good point. Yeah.
finished third all time. So
So is he a Hall of Famer to you?
yes, 16,000 rushing yards. I don't care if none of the seasons were extraordinary. You got to put him in the Hall.
But not right away.
I wouldn't mind first ballot, but I can see the point made where you kind of wait. But the stats say put him in first ballot.
I think I've told you this before. All sports, I hate first ballot, not ballot. It makes no sense to me when they go, "Hey, yeah, this guy's a Hall of Famer," but I need it to be 10 years from now. That makes no sense. You're either a Hall of Famer or not. But in saying that, when DeMarcus Ware didn't get in the first ballot, that made no sense to me, and so I now judge all that. By the way, okay, look. It's drunk drafting. So this you have to accept this is where the show's going. I don't think now, as Tyron Smith retired, signed a 1-day contract to retire as a Cowboy. Cool. I don't know if he's as locked to the Hall of Fame as I thought he was. I thought his all pro numbers were way better. He's only at I say only. I mean, on Madden, I'm a 9-time All Pro. That's not the point. But he's only a 2-time All Pro Bowler or All Pro. Sorry, that kind of shocked me. I thought he was kind of neck and neck. Zach Martin's a day oneer. I think Witten might be, but maybe they do Witten like DeMarcus and say, okay, hey, you got to wait a year. I think Tyron gets in, but I think it might be. I could see Tyron getting lost in all this and it be 10 years from now before he gets in.
Yeah, with Zach Martin, he's gonna be first ballot because for the majority of his career he was injury free. But with Tyron Smith, he started getting injured probably like halfway into his career, and he's kind of just kept coming back and coming back. That back issue was a big concern. But when he was on the field, he made a huge difference on the Cowboys offense. He was still generally regarded as the best left tackle in football. But yeah, I could see him not being a first ballot, but Zach Martin going in.
Did you see what? What's his name? Fletcher Cox said about Zach Martin retiring.
What did he say?
If he said if he'd have done that 3 years ago, I'd still be playing. He listed him, and that players thing where they write stuff when it's really cool. That was real big a few years ago. It's kind of died down, but there's that Players Tribune is still cool. In fact, Ashton Genty wrote a really kind of goofy letter about we saw what Saquon Barkley and the Eagles did, and if you draft me, that's what you'll get. But Fletcher Cox, whenever Martin retires, whenever any player retires, the next day they always, what do everybody say about them? And Fletcher Cox was like, he's the most physical guard, meanest guard, also nicest guard. He's like, he will drive you 7 yards down the field, put you in the ground, and then help you up and ask how your kids are. I have weird feelings about him because he made me mad, but also was super nice about it. But anyway, so let's go to the third pick. The Giants, and you and I talked about this, and you said this best. The Giants need to trade down.
Yeah. They're probably the first team on this draft board. You can make a case for Tennessee as well, but I think the Giants are the first team in this draft that probably should trade out of this and get other picks because they have a lot of other needs they need to address. But there's one factor I say that makes them stay there. And I think it's because of the GM and coach are on the hot seat and they need to make a splash. And having Travis Hunter being drafted here would be a splash.
That's and I think that's 100% right. And it sucks for the Giants because this is what happens when decisions begat decisions. Brian Daboll and the GM don't have another year. So they can't do the smart thing and trade down to the 12th, the 13th, the 15th, and pick up even an extra first round next year. They have got to have a perfect draft. I don't think the Giants have to make the playoffs next year, but the Giants have to be competitive next year. And by competitive, I mean they're going into the last week with a chance to make the playoffs. If they don't do anything as good as that, I think that they're doing a whole clear house of the front office, the coaching, and everything. And I think that makes them have to pick Travis Hunter, which I think, again, as I said, will be the best thing they do, but I don't know if it's the best thing for them right now.
Yeah, I just feel bad for Giants fans, shockingly. Because I think Joe Shane and Brian Daboll are doing what's best for them instead of doing what's best for the team. Even though Travis Hunter is the best player on this draft board, I think trading out and getting multiple picks would be the best decision for this team.
Yeah, I agree. But we both are going with the no trade rule, so we think Travis Hunter. The New England Patriots, this is a team, and I have said it on the record many times. You've disagreed with me. I think Mike Vrabel at Tennessee got overrated. It doesn't mean I don't think he's a good coach. I think he steps into, almost the exact same thing he stepped into in Tennessee with a team that's gotten quietly better than what people realize, but they still have a pretty good stretch to go. I think a Will Campbell, offensive tackle from LSU, that's your guy you're sitting for that position, and he's going to be that position for 10 years. We will talk about him like we talk about Tyron Smith and stuff like that 10, 15 years from now.
100% agree. And this is a need pick.
Yes.
This is they've addressed so much in the offseason because they had $100 million cap space. So they actually did some spending. They got Milton Williams. They have Spillane. They already have Duggar on so their defense is actually pretty good. But their offense, they drafted Drake May last year, 3rd overall, but they never provided an offensive line for him. So they kind of addressed the skill position a little bit in the offseason by getting Diggs.
Yeah.
I think their running game's good enough. I think Hunter Henry's a good enough tight end, but their line's still their line. They got Garrett Bradbury, so get another offensive lineman to pair and help May, a great tackle, and Will Campbell. Damn his small hands. I don't care about his small hands, small or short arms. I think that was a big issue. He is a mauler. He will do well.
I think that kind of stuff gets vastly overrated. Again, and I get it. When you're trying to draft for a guy that you think is going to be at a position for 10 years, you're going to look at everything. But I think sometimes they get a little ridiculous with his hips a little too frozen or too stiff or his arm length's a little too small. You can figure that out. And I think that's one of the things. And he just feels like a Patriot offensive tackle from the 2000s. All right, so the 5th pick, this is one of those that you and I had a long discussion on. And you allowed me to pick this one, and I think I like this pick for the Jags. I think it's not necessarily the best pick for the Jags, but going like we talked about with Travis Hunter, I think long term, I think Tyler Warren as a Jag is you're finally getting a tight end there that's Evan Ingram from beginning to end, and it's kind of funny to say that because people forget 3 years ago Evan Ingram was Kyle Pitts. Like, why is he not better? Why is he not doing? Or what was that one for the line? Brandon Pettigrew. You remember them? Everybody, every year he was supposed to be. This is the year he's going to finally, and he never quite did it. I think Tyler Warren's better than all of them. I don't know if he's as good as Brock from last year, but I think he's not quite as physical. I think he's a better receiver. I think he'll fit in well here. I think this is a pick that people won't like now, but in a year they'll be like, that was actually the best pick they could have done.
New head coach Liam Cohen has an excellent offensive mind.
And loves a tight end. I didn't even think about that. I know we joked about earlier, the Duval thing has become the thing, but I totally forgot that's one of the things he did well with Tampa was the tight ends.
Yeah, and I think having someone, and they have Brenton Strange, who they got in 2023, I believe, but he's solid. I'm not sure if he'll take that big jump into year 3, but if they decide to just improve the tight end position, I think, and you know how to use him because Tyler Warren is not your typical tight end. Yep. He has the size and speed, but he plays all over the place. So if you want someone versatile like him, you get him. And this would be a slam dunk pick for the Jaguars. I know probably every mock draft, every analyst has said Mason Graham out of Michigan at tackle.
If they do that, that's a safe. It's not a bad pick. The Jags are in a position where I'm not going to say they can't mess it up, but if the worst reach they have is Tyler Warren, then they've had a great draft or a great first round. I mean,
100%. I think Tyler Warren or Mason Graham are excellent picks, and you excuse me, with Trevor Lawrence coming back, star quarterback for the Jaguars, he needs some help. He needs some weapons. He needs a number one, maybe not a number one receiver, but they do have a number one receiver, Brian Thomas Jr. But
first round pick last year,
and I think tight end probably makes better sense. They still need to address their defense, but they can do that later on in the draft.
Yep. And again, that's the thing people forget. We always talk about being a top 5 pick in the first round, unless you've traded your picks. Especially in a draft like this, where you and I have said many times, I don't know the top end is amazing, even though I think you have some Hall of Fame type players at the very top, but like the very top's not great as far as 1 through 10. But I do think the depth of this draft is amazing. So, and I don't have their picks ahead of me right now, as studio wife is bringing in this little thing called a draft shot. Intern Noe the pro. You got to take a shot. We got to take a shot. We take a shot. You got
Taking a shot.
Take a shot, son of a bitch. Anyway. But I think the bottom part of the first round and the second round, if you've got the 34th pick in the draft or the 37th, you're getting a quasi first rounder. And so that's why I see Jacksonville taking this chance, because I think they have the draft capital too. And let's be fair. I know Jacksonville has kind of become the new Cleveland, even though, to be fair, they also made an AFC title game in the last decade, and they've made the playoffs another time and had a great win. I don't think the Jacksonville Jaguars are that far off. No. And especially in the AFC South, where everybody's still kind of crunched in together.
Yeah, they just had one really bad season, and they have talent. They have talent on offense. They have talent on defense. Just make this pick that addresses a need that you have. An explosive player on offense is one. Run stuffing defensive tackle that can get to the quarterback is another. You address one of those issues with this pick, you've won.
Yep.
You'll be better next season.
Yep, I totally agree. All right, with the 6th pick, this feels like the most. At this point, I have seen some say that Genty might fall to the Bears, but for the most part, this feels like the most. Everybody knows this is the pick. Cameron Ward, number 1, and Ashton Genty, number 6 to the Raiders.
Yeah, and I mean, you don't want to go into 2025 with Raheem Mostert and Sincere McCormick at running back.
Well, I mean, if Mostert was healthy and would not get, never mind, that hasn't happened. He's another one. As much as I said that about Nick Chubb earlier, actually, if you want to look at like the breakdown to the full analytics of football, whenever he's healthy, Mostert's the best running back, and it's by like huge stretches. But his whole thing is he never could stay healthy. He just can't, and it's like weird little injuries too. It's never like, like Nick Chubb's torn his knee now a couple times. Most of it is more like it's a shoulder, then it's an elbow, then it's an ankle. It's never the same thing.
Hey, my favorite stat on players is their availability.
Yep.
And if you ain't available, then what's the point?
Exactly. And that's you and I think as we've gotten older, we've noticed that more and more where, okay, this is the greatest player. Has he been hurt? Does he miss a lot of time? And it's not, and this isn't he's a wimp or whatever. Some people just get hurt. That's just how that works. They just can't ever stay healthy. And he's just one of those. He just, like I said, it's never the same thing. It's not like again, with Tyron Smith, as frustrating his was backs and stingers. That was the only 2 things. With Zach Martin, it became his ankle, but it was never anything else. With Raheem, it's like every time it's a different injury.
Yeah, and now he's well into the wrong side of 30, so it's just only a matter of time where he's just going to start getting hurt and hurt. 2 years ago was an aberration. He was healthy the whole year, led the league in touchdowns. I mean, career year, but he was 31. So you just can't expect that kind of a workload at 33.
No, I totally agree. All right, so now with the 7th pick, I will admit I don't know where the Jets are going, but this feels like if the Jets want to be smart and play safe and not try to outthink themselves. Now, if Tyler Warren's there, I think that, again, if a couple of other players ahead of them fall, it changes, but we have to pick who we have to pick. I think the Jets get smart. I think all the blowback with the Aaron Rodgers and then with the supposedly that the owner's grandsons were making, you don't make that trade because of his Madden rating, whether that's true or not. I think if they're smart, they do the thing and go, let's just draft the best available player on the board for a need that we have.
I kind of want that rumor to be true, just for.
I think it is. I think 100% it is.
Just for humor. But yeah, Justin Fields, he's in a position where he needs so he has, I think, 3-year, $40 million contract. He has a chance to be able to prove it. And I think the Jets want him to succeed. And I think the best way to do it is to address the line. Now, I know they could get Colston Loveland from Michigan because right now Jeremy Ruckert is their starting tight end. But man, you got to protect Fields. Give him an opportunity. He has Brees Hall. He has Garrett Wilson. Now, the other receiver is Alan Lazard. He has the body. He has the size. And they did draft Olu Fashanu at left tackle. And they got John Simpson from the Ravens. Joe Tippmann at center. They have some building blocks. Get Banks. Will help Fields' development exponentially. And I think Fields deserves a chance to start a whole season.
And it'll help Brees Hall, who struggled last year, who at times got kind of just the offense got mired out. Now, in saying all that, I easily could see the Jags taking Banks and the Jets taking Warren. And I'd be fine with that for both teams either way. If the Jets got because let's all remember when Justin Fields started cooking for Chicago, he had a tight end. And they were, and I know because that tight end was on my fantasy. And at the end of the year, when we're talking trash games, he was putting up, 14, 16, 18 points a game because Justin Fields used him. So the Jags and the Jets, I could legitimately almost seeing those two teams flipping and picking the same player at the same round spot, but for different teams, because they all kind of have the same. The Jets and the Jags kind of have the same needs offensively. All right, let's go to the number 8 pick, and that is the Carolina Panthers. And you and I talked about this. I think Carolina is in a weird position all of a sudden. Everybody was laughing at them a couple years ago, rightfully so. Stupid owners, stuff like that. They've quietly built a solid team. They're now getting into that point where you need the side play positions to be studs. You feel like you have your quarterback. You don't have the running back you want maybe originally, but Chuba had a great year last year. He's filled in. They got him with a really good friendly deal. You've got some solid wide receiver talent. I think the Panthers need defense in an NFC South that's going to be, if nothing else, a lot of scoring.
I'm going to comment one more time on the Jags, and then I'll make my comment.
Okay, go ahead, please.
You make even a better point of flipping those picks with Kelvin Banks going to the Jags and Warren going to the Jets, because the Jags are paying $55 million a year to their starting quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And he got hurt and finished the end of the last season on injury reserve. So
technically he's been hurt the last 2 years, because even the year before, remember, he was, they basically, we said, hey, look, the Jags collapsed, but they collapsed because Lawrence was trying to play hurt, remember?
Yeah, that is very true. Yeah, because we're 8-3, and I think they only won one more game and finished 9-8, but they lost out to the Texans. Anyway, to the Panthers, you have to go defense. You had the league's worst defense, I think historically the worst defense in football last season, but you kept your defensive coordinator. So they feel they have the right coordinator. They just didn't have the right talent. You got to address the talent then. Number 8 pick overall is perfect for that. Michael Williams out of Georgia, great edge rusher. I think this is a good, solid pick for them.
I do love the fact that their defense was so bad that they even outbatted the same year defense of the Dallas Cowboys that we had to watch. That's how bad.
2020.
No.
Oh, yeah. The first half of last year was pretty.
Yeah, the first half of last year. And in fact, their defense was so bad that the one game in the second half of the season that still makes you worry about the Panthers was how bad Dallas beat them, when the Panthers felt like they were on a high, and they kind of were trying to crawl back into the playoff race and everything. But yeah, I agree. I think Williams is going to be the perfect guy. It also feels like he'll be the guy that'll be really great for Carolina, and he might kind of get just lost there because how good he is, but where Carolina develops. But I still contend Carolina's going to be way better than what people think. All right, staying in the NFC South, the number 9 pick. You and I have been saying Jackson Dart for a month, but then the Shedeur Sanders free fall started, or rumored free fall.
On our mock draft.
Well, no, everybody's. I mean, Sanders, I did not have one pick that I looked at today. I looked at 4 today. I've looked at 12 in the last couple of days. none of them had him higher than 9, and then a lot of them didn't even have him here. I still think we're making one of our, hey, we think this would be a reasonable thing, but we're also making a reach pick. He has the danger of falling completely out of the first round.
Whoever picks up Shador after this, whoever picks up Shador is just a steal, and they're going to win the whole draft. He's so accurate. And now, okay, he's Deion's son. You have to.
I don't understand why that is such a knock on. Deion Sanders was a Hall of Fame player. Deion Sanders, for whatever you want to think about prime time and some of the things he talks about as a coach, and sometimes how he promotes, the dude is considered maybe the best corner in the history of the NFL. And Sanders has got a ton of that athletic ability. Now, if you want to knock the quality of teams they've played, valid. You want to knock that whenever they do play great defenses, he struggled, valid. But I want to remind you that Colorado had won 1 game and had won 4 games in 2 years combined before the Sanders family stepped into that program.
Hey, I'm not a detractor. I think Deion is a great CEO of a team. I think he knows how to delegate responsibility. I mean, obviously, you and I both loved him as a player, but there's some that have that as a knock. They kind of call Shador a game manager, a la Alex Smith, but I don't think that necessarily is a bad thing. I think he does a great job of protecting the ball. Even with the bad offensive line at Colorado, he did pretty good, I would say, overall, just avoiding the pressure and making as good of a decision as he possibly can. As he go to a situation where his head coach is Kellen Moore, he's an offensive coordinator for the Super Bowl champs Eagles, and he's gonna try to build something similar in Philadelphia. I mean, in New Orleans, and he didn't. Jalen Hurts, good quarterback, obviously, but it's not like Hurts wows you with his arm, or he wows you with his legs, but you just don't think of Jalen Hurts as with Josh Allen.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that I think New Orleans. The issue with them taking him here is this goes against every move they've been making up to this point this year. Again, the deals they're signing and overpaying for okay players acts like they think they're close to contending. Maybe bringing Kellen in, and maybe Kellen's like, hey guys, look, we got to build. You got to let me take a quarterback and build from the ground up. It's going to take a couple years. And I'm like you. I think the game manager, the bus driver, I think that gets thrown around way too much as a derogatory. I think that's perfectly fine. Same thing with system quarterback. Every quarterback's a system quarterback. We don't know a quarterback yet that has completely changed systems, and because in the NFL, there's not a lot of difference in systems. It's terminology. It's little things here and there. So when people say, well, Brady went to Tampa and basically ran the same thing that he did in New England with the passing game. I mean, there was no difference. And so if Sanders is a bus driver, I'm perfectly fine with that because he's athletic. I like this. I think Sanders with Kellen Moore could do something. I don't want to say they're going to be Drew Brees and Peyton 2.0, but I don't think they'd be too far off.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they still need to address their aging defense, but
I mean like a long-term rebuild, not like in the next couple of years.
Yeah. You don't get Kellen Moore for a quick turnaround, but this is a good move. I like this move a lot.
All right, let's go with the number 10 pick. A move that I really like more that we've talked about it. Again, there's so many teams that I feel like we can say this because this is the way the NFL is. I think the Bears just need some foundation defensive guys and a couple foundation offensive guys. Settle down, get some real football players. I like Caleb Williams. I think he took a lot of crap, but he also brings a lot of pub. I think a Jalen Walker doesn't. He's just a football player, and the Bears need some of those, and that's why I think they pick him.
Yeah, if Ashton Genty fell to the Bears, I would say pick him. But yeah, they needed defensive help, especially like getting to the quarterback and just coverage in general. And Jalen Walker is the perfect fit right here. They have DeAndre Swift going into the season, but I'm pretty sure they can get contribution helps elsewhere. And the biggest thing on the offensive side of the ball the Bears did was get 2 really good offensive linemen, Joe Thuney and I believe Drew Dahlman from the Falcons. So that solidified their offensive line. So they didn't have to I think they can make by with what they have at running back, and that'll really advance. Also, getting Ben Johnson from the Detroit Lions to be the head coach also will advance Caleb Williams' career, and it's really going to make that Bears offense pretty diverse. So, yeah, just focus on the defense, get best available. Jalen Walker, you just can't miss with that pick.
All right, with the number 11 pick, you and I for San Francisco, we go Mason Graham, but we also talked about, this is a team that has went from being the what I would call an NFC dynasty, not an overall NFL dynasty, but an NFC dynasty, to all of a sudden they're at a crossroads. Will last year be looked about, hey, that was just a weird year, injuries finally caught up to us, blah, blah, blah. Or will we look next year and go, okay, San Francisco's in at least a mini rebuild, if not a bigger overall rebuild? And I think the thing that the Niners do pretty good outside of drafting Trey Lance is they draft solid players. And Mason Graham feels like a guy that'll go out to San Francisco and just plug and play.
Yeah. They lost so much on the defensive side. They lost Drake Greenlaw, Talanoa Hufanga, but then they also lost Debo on the offense. So you have to give respect to that. But so getting Mason Graham, it does help a lot. But what does that say about the looming contract for Brock Purdy, their starting quarterback?
No, again, dude, I know, and we're Cowboy fans. Again, we're doing a full NFL draft. We talk the whole NFL, but we're Cowboy fans. I'm wearing a 1990s era Cowboy hat. I'm wearing my Cowboy shirt. I think we're going to look back in a year and go, wow, it was San Francisco that was really going to have to do the full tear down, and maybe not Dallas, like everybody's assumed. I think San Francisco is in a lot more financial, salary cap, depth, roster puzzle put together further away now than people realize. Like I legitimately think we could see San Francisco with a top 5 to 8 pick next year.
Man. So do you think that means John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan might not make it into 2026?
I don't know. Maybe Shanahan. I feel like Lynch. I feel like Lynch survives coaching because you can't knock the roster. You cannot knock the roster since John Lynch has became the GM. I mean, he has built a team from the floor up, and they were sustained successful. He at least gets a tear down and rebuild. Kyle Shanahan, I don't know. Again, it just depends. How bad is it? If they fall to 6-12 or 6-11, but they had more injuries and stuff, I don't know. I feel like San Francisco would sit through a rebuild with both of them possibly. Because I don't really think either one of them's at fault. I know we can talk about the Kyle Shanahan, what happens in the fourth quarter, and that's a valid thing. But, I mean, for the most part, they've built good rosters. It really legitimately has been injuries that's been the issue.
Hey, if you get a full season of Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, and Ricky Pearsall to go along with Juwan Jennings and George Kittle, I think their offense is just fine.
That's a good point. That's a real good point. All right,
here we go.
We think they're going safe. We think they're doing that.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Here we go. Buck, here we go.
You know what the Dallas Cowboys have not done since 1995?
I am the champion.
But you know who got to do that twice in 2024?
I am the champion.
Told you I'm doing that every week. Sorry. All right. You and I feel like this is the one time I think everybody, for the most part, has a good thumb on the pulse, whatever you call it, about what the Cowboys are going to do because it feels like it's kind of obvious, at least with how this draft pulls apart. Now, again, if an Ashton Genty falls, if a Kelvin Banks, even a Campbell I'm sorry, I said Kevin Banks, a Will Campbell, I still think there would be an outside chance that they call the Giants just to kick the tires on a Travis Hunter because, I mean, we hadn't even talked about the angle of that would be Deion Sanders-esque style player back in Dallas who does a lot of the things that Deion does. But I think at the end of the day, Dallas is going to go wide receiver. I think they're going to choose between McMillan from Arizona and Matthew Golden from Texas. Me personally, I would like Golden, but that's simply because I just have, as a Texas Longhorn fan, have seen every game that he played with Texas over the last year and a half. I think they're going to go one of those, and we went with McMillan because that's kind of seems like the hot name right now.
Yeah, Tetaroa McMillan, excellent receiver out of Arizona. I liked him more 2 years ago than I did last season, but I'm not going to knock that on him. I think Arizona took a step back last year anyway. I'm happy with either of those wide receivers, but yeah, wide receiver is the position the Cowboys need, and getting him to pair against or with CeeDee Lamb, that's going to help Dak out a lot next season.
Well, and this is where we talk about, you brought this up, and we've talked about it before, but you brought it while we were drafting. This isn't about just the best available. I know we all say that, but it's about, okay, if we punt the running back to the second round, is there still somebody we can get, barring unforeseen draft runs? And that happens. We talked about it before. Running backs and wide receivers tend to have runs, meaning when one or two get picked in a row or within 3 picks, people kind of, GMs get nervous. But as long as the draft folds like they think it will, there's going to be a really good running back in the second round. There's going to be a really good depth lineman on both sides of the ball in the third and fourth round. Where is the wide receiver? I think there's 4 really good wide receivers. I think 2 of them, though, McMillan and Golden, are way ahead of everybody else. I think you're looking at 2 possible consistent all-pros, and then everybody else depending on how they develop. So that's why I think, to me, if the draft folds out like we think, wide receiver is the most obvious pick for the Cowboys in this pick.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
And I think the same thing with the 13th pick. The Dolphins, look, all jokes aside, we don't want Tua going to gangs. We don't want Tua throwing fingers when he doesn't even know what he's doing. I mean, Jameis Winston is jealous of his crab hands whenever Tua gets knocked out. They've got to protect Tua. And to be fair, if they didn't draft an offensive lineman, I don't care if every pick before them was an offensive lineman. If they don't pick an offensive lineman, if I'm the owner, I'm firing the GM immediately. They've got to protect the quarterback because, folks, if the Dolphins can tweak things and get the locker room back right, this team is not far off. I genuinely believe that. You were high on the Dolphins last year. I wasn't. For some reason now, I feel like this is a precipice moment where Mike McDaniel becomes the coach that I think he can be, and he stops kind of being a little kid at the time. I think sometimes he tries to be too cool for school. I think they had a come to Jesus talk with him. That's an old East Texas saying. I mean, you better get your shit right. They had a come to Jesus meeting with him, and I think you draft an offensive lineman. I think the Dolphins are scary next year.
Yeah, and also health was a big thing too. Like A-Chan, Tyreek Hill, who needs to get his off the field issues in order before the season starts. I think the best thing I think Mike McDaniel did last season was develop the tight end position. He said that was the next position he was going to incorporate in his complex offense, and I think Jonnu Smith benefited from it, especially in the second half of last year. But like you said, Tua, concussions, gang signs, got to protect this dude. You're paying. He's just like with Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. You're paying him $55 million a year. Protect him, otherwise he's useless to you. So getting Membo is slam dunk.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. All right, with the 14th pick, the Colts, again, so some of these, we said it earlier, we even pointed out, like the fifth pick and the 7th pick, you could trade those positions and be the same players. Some of these, I feel like the Colts will get Tyler Booker, but I feel like the Colts will try to trade down and still get Tyler Booker. He's a great player. He's one of those guards you're going to plug and play, and he's going to play for 10 years. But if you can get him at 25 with an extra third, you're going to do that.
And, the Colts go into this season without 2 of their linemen from last season, Ryan Kelly, Will Fries. The quarterback room is really not the most appeasing right now with Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones battling it out.
Is there? I'm sorry. Let's play the what if. Sanders doesn't get picked by the Saints. Is there any world where the Colts go, you know what? We're doing it. We're taking Sanders.
No.
You think they're whether they like it or not, and by the way, there are projected, we don't know how the season's going to play out, of course, in college, but projected next year's quarterback class is supposed to be deeper, better, and all that. So that would make sense. Okay, let's go ahead and get our offensive lineman now. If Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones is good, that's awesome. If not, we've at least got our offensive line built. Because again, the Colts don't have a terrible roster.
Yeah, and they have a pretty good offensive-minded head coach, and Shane Steichen. He came over from the Eagles after they made it to the Super Bowl after the 2022 season. So you would think he would be a quarterback whisperer, but man, I just feel like with Richardson, it was a big whiff. I guess
that pick never made sense. That pick never made sense. That pick, Anthony Richardson, happened because Josh Allen succeeded. Because they were the same quarterback, except for Allen actually runs the ball more in college, but they were the same quarterback in college. Big arm, wow arm, accuracy struggled, interception struggled, but everybody said with Josh Allen, rightfully so, was, well, look, he's at Wyoming. You know, he's throwing to guys who will be selling insurance next year.
Yeah.
Anthony Richardson was given the same benefit of the doubt because he has a great arm. But I mean, he's at Florida. He should have. And I know Florida's not Florida, but I mean, Florida's still a really good team. We sometimes get lost in the SEC, like, oh, Florida sucks. Well, no, Florida's getting beat by 4 top 5 teams in a row. I feel like they just. I'm like you said. I think they whiff. I think Daniel Jones ends up being the starter by the end of the year.
Yeah, I think Daniel Jones becomes a starter coming out of camps. To be honest with you.
Ooh, I like that. And you know what? In the AFC South, you get a quarterback that won't make a lot of mistakes, and you game plan, and you really fit that offense to him. Again,
Daniel Jones has never been a starter with wide receivers like Michael Pittman and Alex Pierce and Josh Downs and Adonai Mitchell. I'm okay with this.
Yeah, I agree. I like that. I kind of agree. I think even if Sanders was there, I don't know if they would take it. All right, let's go with the 15th pick. Okay, if Sanders drops all the way down to Atlanta, will they take a quarterback? But no, you and I were saying it. The Falcons need pass rush. They did a very smart thing last year and traded for Judon, and they didn't give up a lot. He just wasn't it. He's lost that step. And you and I talk about it. You know, it's running backs and defensive pass rushers. When they lose that first step, they're gone. Because that's the most of I've never heard a great pass rusher where somebody says, yeah, he had a really slow first step, but he was good after that. No, it's always your first step's your best step. I like Shamar Stewart. I worry, though, that this feels like the pick that seems right and it looks right, but the Falcons always seem to kind of whiff on these, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, you almost think they whiffed on last year's draft too, but it was fine. But yeah, Shamar Stewart.
Like Dallas Turner in Atlanta. I'm just going to say that. Dallas Turner should be an Atlanta Falcon.
Man, Shamar Stewart, he has the size, he has the measurables. He just didn't. And to me, Sack is the most overrated stat on the defensive side. So I want to know about quarterback pressures,
win rate.
Yeah. Pass. Was it pass win rate or
pass win rate? Pass rush win rate. It's funny. I'm a baseball guy. I love baseball. I hate analytics of baseball. I like it in football because football and hockey are the two sports that you can use analytics, but you can't build your team simply with analytics like they do in basketball and baseball right now. And pass rush win rate, quarterback pressures, I'll take them all day, every day because, and I know we've said it 1,000 times, I learned that in 1992 with Charles Haley because Charles Haley did not have a lot of sacks. But Charles Haley lived in the backfield, and Charles Haley created so much havoc. He did his whole time in Dallas, and he did his time in San Francisco as well. I think Shamar Stewart is one of those that he has the, high risks ceiling, but a low floor. I could see him becoming a Marcus Davenport, which isn't bad. I mean, Marcus Davenport's kind of carved out a career, but he hasn't been what he was when the Saints drafted him. I think the Saints drafted him around 15. Maybe it was a little bit higher. But this just feels like a very natural pick.
It's natural. It fills a need, and with the right coach coaching him up, and if he wants it, he has desire to be successful. I think Stewart can really achieve a lot.
I think that the one thing I wish for him, I wish he could go. I say this, go to Dallas. But by the way, if they took him with a 12th, I wouldn't hate it because here's why. I think Stewart will benefit from having another guy on the other side that you don't have to put two guys on Stewart, you force your right tackle to have to take on Stewart one-on-one. I think that's where he could be dangerous.
You're thinking like a la 20 or 2009 Anthony Spencer.
Oh, the one Anthony Spencer year. Oh, love him. I always liked him. Purdue Boilermaker. All right, with the 16th pick, I told you this earlier. I even said this when we were drafting. Oh, we should have recorded that just for funs. The Cardinals are just a team I never understand. But everything I read and trusting on what you're saying, Derek Harmon feels like the best bet for them.
Now we'll forget it because we'll be drunk by then. But next year we should definitely do it and put it on Patreon.
By then, I've been drunk by then for 2 hours now, brother.
So remember how I told you the Panthers defense was pretty garbage last season? The Cardinals were just a little bit better.
Yep.
So they addressed some of it by getting Josh Sweat from the Eagles. I think this would be the next step. Derek Harmon was a big tackle for Oregon. He's going to help that defense a lot. So, yeah, this is an easy pick for me.
And the next easiest pick. Now, I will say this about the Cincinnati Bengals. I meant to bring this up during our actual draft. I feel like they're a team that could try to make a big move up and try to get someone if they feel like, hey, a Travis Hunter. Because you said it best. If the Bengals, in the first 4 rounds, if the Bengals draft anybody but defense, there's something wrong with them. And if Stewart's available, Shemar Stewart, like we said, I think they would take him. I like Mike Green from Marshall, but it wouldn't shock me if they tried to move up and get Travis Hunter. Or maybe, dude, the hardest part is, are you going to get Cleveland willing to trade with you? I could see the Bengals calling about Abdul Carter, though.
Oh, yeah. And that doesn't necessarily mean they're getting rid of Hendrickson, but they might need to get rid of him to move up that far.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But yeah, they have to go deep.
That actually make kind of sense, though. Hey, Cleveland, we'll give you Henderson. You put him with Myles Garrett. I know they're both older, but they both have long. I mean, Henderson just came off of a maybe his best career year for him, and he's not slowing down.
Hey, I thought he probably should have been Defensive Player of the Year.
If it
wasn't for that terrible defense, I probably would have won.
Yeah, I think it was hard to say, okay, again, it feels like there was a lot of historically bad defenses last year. But yeah, that's the best way. I tried to explain that the other day to somebody and I couldn't. You can't, even if you're the best player in the league, if you're on a bad defense or even a bad offense, it's really hard to make you be the defensive player of the year, whether that's right or wrong. But anyway, going safe, no trades and stuff. I think Mike Green would be a really solid other side guy, get some pressure from the other side. Or if you need to make him the number one pass rusher, I don't know if he's ready for that, but I mean, you got to at least try.
Yeah, you have to at least try.
All right. And then with the 18th pick, this is where you and I were like, Seattle's one of those teams that I can see them trading up. I can see them trading down. I can see them staying here. I can see them making a pick that we're all like, what the hell? We tried to go as safe as we could with what the information we have. They really need offensive line help because I like what Sam Darnold did last year. You and I both were fans of his. We both said we thought he was going to have a good year with the weapons that he had. But when offensive line issues started showing, especially those last 2 games, there's a reason why Sam Darnold did not sign a contract with the Vikings for 4 years, $200 million, because if he doesn't have an offensive line, and I know you can say this about a lot of quarterbacks, but especially his style, if he doesn't have a lot of offensive line help, he's going to struggle.
If they don't get an offensive lineman here, Sam Darnold would be leaving Minnesota for West Coast Minnesota.
West Coast Minnesota.
Because they have almost everything else. Seattle won 10 games. So, you really can't forget that. They tied with the Rams for the division lead.
Yeah, if Sam Darnold is protected and they figure out another wide receiver, and again, I think Golden is a very possible option here, or McMillan, whoever Dallas doesn't take. I feel like Seattle in a division that's going to be really good. If you don't watch out for them, they can surprise you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or they could also finish 8-9 and have the 18th pick next year. They're kind of in that weird rut right now. They're kind of in between. They're not bad. And this is what's so tough about this era of NFL where you have salary caps, which means you can only do so much, but it also means you don't always have to go to 4-13 to rebuild. But I feel like Seattle's in that unfortunate position where unless they just hit everything perfectly with a draft and your free agencies, they're kind of stuck in 8-9, 9-8.
Yeah, so they need to do something to push that to 11, 12 wins. Now, getting DeMarcus Lawrence on defense helps a lot, and that might be the reason why, in my head, I want them to go offense. But protecting Geno Smith was an issue last season.
Big issue.
Yeah, so and he still got them to 10 wins. You put Sam Darnold in there, he's a good quarterback, but he does need protection. He has some talent. He has MVS, he has JSN, he has Cooper Kupp. So there's some talent there, but yeah, just protect him, man. And getting Zabel is the easiest pick to me.
All right, with the number 23rd pick.
You mean whoa, scroll down.
Oh, joke. Sorry, my bad. I was looking at the wrong thing. I want to say something about Green Bay that I don't want to forget. That's why, because I just thought about something. Green Bay, it's funny. We'll go to them here in a minute, but Green Bay is funny because it's been multiple coaches now since Mike Holmgren. Basically, third GM since Mike Holmgren, but they still draft the exact same way they've always been. So I want to make a case here for that one here. But yeah, let me scroll down. Sorry about that. All right, with the 19th pick, now this is one you and I really debated. This is a holy shit. You know what this is? The 19th pick, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, is Dallas taking CeeDee Lamb.
Ooh.
It didn't make at the time. You're like, well, wait a minute. You have this. Wait, no, actually, that's going to work. That if Matthew Golden falls to Tampa Bay, they're going to be a superstar, and there will be a little bit of pleasure for me knowing that every time Baker Mayfield threw a touchdown to him, he's throwing it to a Longhorn, and he's got to accept that. No, I'm not one of those that hate Baker Mayfield. I love his attitude, so I'll admit. I like Tampa Bay. I like Baker Mayfield in Tampa Bay. I like the team that they've built. I like Mike Evans. I like Chris Godwin. It's because there's a lot of Texans on the team. I think Tampa Bay and the Rams have proven the thing that Dallas doesn't understand is you can blow out for a Super Bowl run and draft smart, make smart decisions after, rebuild, and still be a contender.
Yeah, I mean Tampa. They just
won 5 division titles in a row now. 4, right?
Yeah,
4
I think since 21 they've won every year. Yeah, so 4 in a row.
Well, 2022 didn't they?
So the Saints were still good that year. That was Breeze's last year.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because Tampa couldn't beat the Saints, but didn't have to play in the playoffs.
Yeah,
that's right.
Tampa won the Super Bowl as a wild card that season.
Yes, that's right. But anyway. This is one of those picks that I know some people would be like, "Oh, what are they doing? They've got Evans, but Evans and Godwin are old." I mean, again, Mike Evans, great. He's a Hall of Fame receiver. He will always be, even though he'll get in first ballot, even though he has a Super Bowl. I think people will always forget about Mike Evans. But they're all getting old. And last year, they literally had to force feed him the last game to get his 1,000-yard streak. I think Matthew Golden slots in perfectly. You're playing him as the number 3 wide receiver for the first part of the year. I think this would be a home run pick.
Oh, yeah. And I know the Broncos might be the very next pick of the Broncos. I think they might be a little pissed they couldn't have Golden slide down to them. But
Cortland Sutton and
the Broncos, they're in a very good position, but they do need a skilled position player. And I think if Golden was available, I would take him over who we have them picking, which is Omarion Hampton from North Carolina.
Oh, 100%. Again, we have to make a pick, so that player's off the board. I'm going to say something. In fact, right now I'm telling myself this, clip this. The Denver Broncos will win the AFC West next year. I think the Denver Broncos are way closer than what people think. I kind of now feel that Sean Payton being brought over, this is conspiracy theory Terry right here. I think they realized after year 1, Russell Wilson wasn't going to be the fit for them. I think they told Sean Payton, look, just get through year 1. Get him out of here. It's your team. He drafted who's want, and look how good they were last year. You add a Golden or a Hampton, and I think Omarion Hampton's going to be, I don't want to say just as good as Ashton Genty, because Genty does feel like a Saquon Barkley type generational talent. But I think you add a running game or a wide receiver, if Matthew Golden, or even if Tyler Warren fell all the way down. I just think the Broncos are way better than what people realize.
Yeah, especially after getting Talanoa Hufanga at safety and Dre Greenlaw at linebacker. It kind of completed their defense. Their offensive line was already top 5 in the league, and then they added Evan Ingram from the Jaguars. So all Bo Nix needs is a skill position player, someone to either hand off to or to throw to. So this is a slam dunk. This almost completes the perfect offense, the perfect all 22 really in the NFL.
And I have, so, we're in, for people that know, if you just found us on YouTube randomly, hello. We are based in Dallas, and I cover high school football. Also have a lot of high school football connections. And I have been told that Von Miller might be up for 2 teams to play next year. Can you guess those 2 teams?
Going back to the Broncos?
Or the Cowboys. That's the only 2 teams that, so as of right now, that Von Miller says that, off the record, things I've been told. And that doesn't mean no other team couldn't. Like, I think if the Bills reached back out, because I think for the most part he enjoyed his time with the Bills. But I've been told that he would love a Denver reunion. And I mean, again, Von Miller at 12 snaps a game, veteran minimum, he can get you 8 sacks.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's 34, 35, but he still has something in the tank, especially as a part-timer like old Trace Armstrong was for the Dolphins way back when.
That is you and I, we realized we were in love because I could say Trace Armstrong, and you're like, dude, super underrated. Well, look what he did with the Dolphins. I'd say Simeon Rice. People forget how good he was with the Cardinals, and then we got married. Well, we did it in Maine because you can't do that in Texas. But anyway, all right, let's go to the 21st pick. Now, this is one you and I have. The Steelers are one of the teams that they could either do Will Johnson, who we went ahead and said it's going to be Will Johnson, or if they really, really feel like, because they've got to do something at quarterback. There is no way they're rolling out Mason Rudolph as the number 1 next year, right? Right? Please tell me they're not rolling out Mason Rudolph as the number 1.
Well, you know how I say when you have a good star quarterback that you're paying a lot of money, you want to protect them with an offensive line?
Mm-hmm.
Why get DK Metcalf and you have no one to throw to?
Dude, that's a really good point. Well, no. Holy crap. What is going to happen to poor Mason Rudolph when he can't get George Pickens or DK Metcalf the ball? They're going to start beating his ass they're going to start throwing helmets at him.
No, you know what's going to happen? They're just going to call Myles Garrett.
Oh, man. Poor man. You think, is Mason Rudolph like, please draft a quarterback. Please, Aaron Rodgers. Please draft a quarterback. Please. I appreciate the money. I don't want to throw to those because DK Metcalf's a scary dude. And I think George Pickens would beat DK Metcalf in a fight.
You mean Metcalf's all muscle, no fight?
No, well, yeah, but not in a bad way. George Pickens is just a dog in a good way. George Pickens is the guy that you hate like Baker Mayfield. You hate him as an opponent. You love him on your own team. I love George Pickens. I told you that when we were talking, just forward shooting for the Cowboys. I would love George Pickens on the Cowboys. He brings that. I miss that. I love CeeDee Lamb. I think CeeDee Lamb is a generational talent. But man, I really wish he had that dog that Dez and that Michael Irvin, that even Antonio Bryant had. It's just that, you know what? I will street fight you if I need to. That's what George Pickens and DK Mack, especially George Pickens. But anyway, point is, we're going safe because the Steelers tend to go safe. So we're saying Will Johnson. But if Shedeur Sanders drops here, I don't see how Pittsburgh lets him go past. Like, I think that's in fact, I really like that. I would like Shedeur Sanders because, Mike Tomlin has that cred to tell Dion, shut up. I'm running this. You sit over here. I trust you. You can help me. In fact, I could see a world where Mike Tomlin hires Deion Sanders after a year to be on staff. I think Deion Sanders will be an NFL head coach at one point.
Man, he's in his mid-50s already. If he's going to do it, he's going to have to try to get in the NFL in the next few years.
Isn't that crazy to think that? Because back in the day, your head coaches you didn't get your head coaching job till 60s. And now, because of the success of the younger guys, you're right. It feels like if you're past 48, you better have something special to bring you back to the NFL.
Yeah. But yeah, going back with the Steelers, man, you really think they really should go quarterback, but they're starting to become the Cowboys in the sense that they're going to be perennially about this same record.
Yeah.
And they're going to pick the safest pick possible. But Will Johnson, cornerback, Michigan, he's supposed to be in the top 10.
Again, if Dallas picked Will Johnson at 12, I would be happy as a Lamb. I would be so friggin' happy because we talked about the multiple guys that they have, but they have injury issues and all that. Yeah, and that's why we did. That's why at the end of the day, because I still think Pittsburgh could get Jackson Dart if they really want him in the second round. I think Jackson Dart, or maybe like we talked about Tyler Shock, maybe Shuck. Maybe that's he's become the hot name. But anyway, so we went with Will Johnson for 21. For 22 for the LA Chargers. Again, this is one we went back and forth, but this just feels normal. A Michigan legend, Michigan head coach, former. He's already got a couple Michigan guys. Colston Loveland feels really good for the Chargers right here at 22.
And he fills a big need for the Chargers.
Yeah, that's dude. He fills a really important need.
AKA offensive firepower of any kind. I think they did a good job last season filling up the roster with good line play on both sides of the ball. And I think there is a need after losing Bosa to the Patriots, but man, you especially in the playoffs, you saw what a lack of star power did for Justin Herbert. I think, yeah, to me, getting Najee Harris in the offseason.
I'm forgetting about that. Crap. Yeah. I love that move, by the way.
He fits the Harbaugh running back mode, so I think that's a good move. Getting Mike Williams back with Ladd McConkey, get a tight end that's better than Will Dissly and Tyler Conklin, and you're in good shape.
Well, and again, Michigan, he knows him. Harbaugh knows this guy. Go look at any college coach that's moved up to pro, Jimmy Johnson. Look how many Miami Hurricanes he signed over the years. Not all of them fit, but he knew them. This just feels like, when in doubt, pick who you know. All right. So let's now go to, we're almost winding down there, brother. This ain't gone as long as I thought it would. Let's go to the 23rd pick. And what I want to say about Green Bay. Green Bay is the master of drafting these defensive end, outside linebacker guys who will lead the league in sacks or be near the top 5, and then in 3 years they're out of the league. It is so odd how they hit on these guys, but just for really small windows. I'm trying to think of the white dude for the Packers a few years ago that didn't lead the league in sacks, but he was really close, and then he just disappeared. That's what they do. Quarterbacks and defensive ends, and I feel like Nick Scortron fits that. Edge rusher, really solid, really raw. Well, not really raw. He has a lot. It's not, how to explain this? His skill set is a veteran. His athleticism is not. There's a ceiling on how athletic he is, but he's a student of the game, has a ton of different moves. He's really good with that kind of stuff. This just feels like a really safe pick for the Packers, and he'll get them 8 sacks a year for the next 4 years.
Much like with the Falcons at pick 15, Packers need an edge rusher. Except the Packers are actually going to get the safer pick. And I think he fills a need. I think he's good enough to really improve that defense. Last year, getting Jeff Hafley, the head coach of Boston College, to be their DC was a great move. Their defense was so much better, but they still lacked that pass rush. So, yeah, getting a pass rusher of Scorton's abilities is perfect.
You know what, dude? Damn it. I got to change our picks.
Why?
Why would they need a rush guy? They need a edge guy, right? Why would the former Boston College coach not take the Boston College defensive end?
Oh. So, yeah, on our mock draft, as you can see, the Eagles are selecting Donovan as a Roku.
That's my fault. I forgot about that. I will say that I'm flipping those right now. I'm officially making it. We've officially changed the draft. Tyler Warren will go to the Jets. Kelvin Banks will go to the Jags. And no, but that does make sense. Now, again, okay, here's a fun thing. So let's say
Glenn
they
Foley is not available for the draft. Get that out of your mind.
don't. Good deep reference there. I love you, brother. But let's say the Green Bay doesn't pick Donovan. How do you say it? Ezekiarko? Ezekiarko?
I think it's as a Roku.
Ezekiarko. Okay, so if they don't pick him, does that make teams afraid to draft him early? Because you're like, why wouldn't the guy that recruited him, all that? Interesting. Okay, I will admit, I would change. I don't know why that I mind blanked on that. Great recall right there. That's why I bring you on every 5 shows. I mean, I have 30 other shows I do that you don't know about. Oh, don't check our YouTube channel. But I do think now if we were to redo this one, I would have the Boston College guy going to the former Boston College defense head coach. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. And again, if I had remembered that during our mock draft, then I would probably have said it.
Maybe this is why GMs don't drink during the live draft.
Because they're wimps.
That's the way the draft should be. Every GM should have to do 3 shots to begin and then draft.
And then a shot per pick in front of you.
So I almost thought about doing that with us if we'd have done this live. And I realized that you and I are bulldogs of drinkers. Like, man, we can put it back 20 years ago. Now, after the 5th pick, we'd be asleep and there'd be like YouTube on.
Hey, for the live show, we could do like a 4th of a shot.
Don't tempt me with a good time. Damn it.
That would be 8 full shots for the entire draft. I think that's doable.
Oh, no. I know how we should do it. For every pick we're wrong. Because this is saved. I have this saved. I have our pick saved. Yeah. Every pick we're wrong, we'll do a quarter shot.
All right. Okay. Virtual handshake.
Yeah. Oh, is that not a virtual handshake?
Oh,
I'm sorry. I'm going to go back.
I'm supposed to shake that.
That's going to be fun, though. I thought you shake it twice, you're playing with it. All right. So now let's go to the 24th pick, the Minnesota Vikings, who I don't know why. And I know they're not going to do it with the first pick. I know this because I think if they really were worried about quarterback, they probably would have been a little bit more open about Aaron Rodgers. But I also think you can make the case that I think Aaron Rodgers has poisoned the water so much that he's not viewed as the guy you want. I mean, he's the guy. Like, why do you want to bring this dude in? And I know it's for different things, but this was the thing with Colin Kaepernick. I don't. People act like he was blackballed. I don't think he was blackballed. I think what GMs probably rightfully said was, is it going to be worth it to bring him in and have everything that follows? I think Aaron Rodgers is at that now. But I also don't feel like Minnesota's that secure with J.J. McCarthy. Or maybe it's just me. I just never thought he was a NFL, this is the guy we're going to have starting for the next 10 years. I've always felt that J.J. McCarthy will be a really good 1B backup, play some starts here and there. But I don't know. I'm saying if Dart or Sanders is there, I think Minnesota at least thinks about it. But I think at the end of the day, they won't because they have a lot of talent around J.J. McCarthy. And I do see the validity of let him play with the talent. Because that offense, Jesus Christ, if they get their offensive line situation straight, that offense is amazing.
Oh, 100%. I think the sky's the limit essentially for them. So they got Ryan Kelly and Will Fries from the Colts.
On paper, great moves. We just don't, you know how that works. You never know if they work. If they do, I mean, I think Minnesota is going to be right back where they were last year. Whoever the quarterback is, when you've got the offensive talents to throw to, and you can be protected, then you'll see Minnesota how they were from week 1 to week 14 before the injuries on the offensive line started rolling up.
They got running back depth by getting Jordan Mason from the 49ers.
I forgot about that. Good point.
To help out Aaron Jones. Defense, they got Javon Hargrave. What did you say it was? Yeah, because they got Jonathan Allen from Washington, Javon Hargrave from the 49ers. Was it the J&J?
Yep. Oh, like the old Kevin Williams and Pat Williams. It's J&J. It's Williams, law firms.
So the thing here is their future. I don't know if it'd be a Hall of Famer, but at least they'll retire his number. Harrison Smith, strong safety,
Great
getting up
play.
there in age. Yeah, he's 35, 36 now. Still a great player, but they need a contingency plan. They need succession plan, and the best safety in this draft. And he's a healthier version of Derwin James. Nick Worry from South Carolina. I think he's like 6'3", 220, big, hits, fast. I'm sold.
Yeah, I actually like the top two safeties because we actually had that debate, him or Malachi Starks. But I agree with you. He's a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger. I know in today's world, people are like, well, you want smaller and faster. It's a passing world. Again, teams are playing shell defenses. Running games are back in play, folks. You're going to need a physical safety that can run downhill. And I think that's what's going to happen with them. All right, let's go to the 25th pick. The Houston Texans. Houston's a team. I still don't feel they're as close as a lot of people think they are, but they're in a division where they're going to probably make the playoffs or at least contend to it. They're trying to rebuild the offense on the fly, which is really weird when you think about where the offense was just a year ago. But that's the NFL. It's fast. Things change really, really quick. So now all of a sudden you feel one of the strengths of the team, the offense, now is trying to find its footing again. And I think when you need to find your footing and you need offensive line, go offensive line. It will not do you wrong.
Yeah, and especially when you got the number 2 overall pick in the 2023 draft and C.J. Stroud, you saw how good he was with just a mediocre offensive line. Protect him and make sure your receivers don't get all hurt all at once.
And that's a real. Thank you for saying that. I do want to make the point that offensively, some of the struggles was, yes, the league had caught up to C.J. Stroud. That's how this works, folks. That's why unless you're just a Hall of Fame super player, it's why even when you have a great first year as a quarterback, especially your second year, you tend to take a little bit of a step back because teams have figured you out. So now you need to adjust your game. But also with Houston, and this sucks, but injuries at the wide receiver, like, holy crap. They just, like, you roll a guy out and he tears a knee in one game. I mean, Stephon Diggs, it took a couple of games. It looked like he was finding his footing. And by the way, it seemed like he was actually happy as the third guy in Houston. And then he gets hurt. And of course, Tank Dell and all that. But Josh Simmons protecting C.J. Stroud, I think, would go a long, long way. And they know each other.
Yep, I completely agree. And that's the only glaring weakness on a very stacked roster.
Yep, I agree. In fact, I legitimately think, and please understand, I know, Cowboy fans, blah, blah, blah. We don't think about that because I like DeMeco Ryans. But I think if the Texans don't take a bigger step forward, I don't think he's fired. Well, I could see him fired if they just completely collapse. I don't think they will. But I do think if they pull another 10-7, 9-8, but make the playoffs, but get beat in the first round, I do think the pressure will start to be on that coaching staff.
And if especially the offensive side of the ball, because they fired their offensive coordinator.
Didn't that feel a little quick?
Yeah, I think Bobby Slowick deserved another season. I mean, it was in year 2. I know they had great expectations, but Tank Dell, Nico Collins, and Stephon Diggs all got hurt.
Dalton Schultz was hurt at times. The offensive line was, again, a little. It's weird how teams like Chicago Bears and I know they don't always, so don't at me with stats, but you always think Chicago, tough defense, can't find a quarterback. The Texans, I don't know if it's the curse of drafting Baselli, but it always feels like offensive line is their big weakness.
Yeah, it has been pre Stroud. So
yeah, well, even last year. Anyway, all right. So with the 26th pick, we feel the LA Rams could go a multiple different ways. I really feel, and I think you agreed, I could also see them trading down. But if, again, the rules are no trades, they do need a cornerback. Jahdae Barron from Texas, dude's I won't call him a lockdown quarterback, but he's a dude you can plug in week 1. And also, I've been hearing that there might be a Jalen Ramsey reunion.
Oh, because Miami is looking to shop
Yeah.
Jalen Ramsey right now. So maybe. I mean, I
And
could
you could
definitely see that reunion, especially with a team that's top 10 and they just need some extra defensive
Mhm.
presence. They've done really well addressing their defense in the draft the last couple of years. But yeah, that would be a very splashy move. But man, Barron just makes so much sense. And he's younger and he'll be cheaper.
Oh no, I'm thinking both. Like you get Barron, then you bring Ramsey in on a veteran deal with a 7th or maybe a 5th round pick, and you go, "Hey, teach this dude." By the way, you and I, we're gonna have our next happy hour. One of the topics are about the top 5 cornerbacks in the history of the NFL, because I think that's one of the most fascinating positions with how the sport has changed. Where I think maybe I think Darrell Revis might be the greatest cornerback in history because of the rules he had to deal with. So we'll have to have that show. But anyway, all right, let's go to the 27th pick. We're going to stay in the secondary. We're going to go to the Baltimore Ravens. By the way, the 26th team and the 27th team, that was my Super Bowl pick. I do want to point out, I was almost there. I almost pulled one out of my butt because nobody else picked them. And as you and I were talking about, I think people forget the Rams gave the Eagles the toughest playoff game all the way through the Super Bowl. The Rams were throwing for the lead, got sacked, couldn't do it. Nobody else got within 10 points of the Eagles. But the other team was the Ravens. And, dude, you said it best when we said this. They always pick secondary, and they always seem to get good picks. And I think Malachi Starks is going to be a really solid pick.
He'll be a solid pick. One of the only 2 first-round caliber safeties in this draft. And they already have a pretty solid secondary, but you definitely always want to keep looking for younger replacements. And with Baltimore, they got Kyle Hamilton from Notre Dame at one side. Wouldn't hurt to just add Malachi Starks on the other side. Now, if you look at their secondary, they have Nate Wiggins at corner. They have Marlon Humphrey at nickel, Chidobe Awuzie at their corner. But their free safety is a Darius Washington, solid player, had started every game last season, but that was his first full year starting.
It feels kind of like Jeff Heath for the Cowboys back in the day.
Yeah, it feels like Jeff Heath. Yeah, I would say keep Darius Washington as one of the for depth, and just draft Malachi Starks to help compete against these teams that have excellent receiving cores.
Well, again, you're in a division with Cincinnati, and they're 3, and we joke about the quarterback for Pittsburgh, but they've got good wide receivers, and Cleveland has some solid talent. By the way, I could also see 26 and 27 flipping. I could see the Rams going with Starks, and then the Ravens going with Barron. All right, for the 28th pick. Now, this is, again, a really hard one, and the reason why is the Detroit Lions. We know Dan Campbell. We know their offense. We know their defense, but we don't know their coordinators. So you're going to really learn, because here's the thing people don't understand. For all the talk about who the GM drafts or who the head coach drafts, a good team that drafts well, they talk to the position coaches, the defensive coordinators. So we're going to kind of learn what the room is with this pick with the Lions if they stay in. I feel like, and you're always going to get this with the bottom teams in the first round, I feel like the Lions would love to trade down, pick up an extra 3rd, extra 2nd, because there's not a ton of holes to fill, but one of them is just defensive talent. I don't even know if it's a position, just defensive talent. And you and I feel that, at least at this pick, with how our draft's going, Jihad Campbell from Alabama. I love Alabama linebackers. I go all the way back to all the way back to history, but you even go back to the Cowboys and what's his name from Alabama who fizzled out at the Raiders and literally became an all-pro linebacker in 2014, because that's just Alabama linebacker is just, it's right as rain. And I like Campbell, and I think if Campbell, wherever Campbell goes, but I think Campbell in that Lions system with the guys around him, I don't know if he's going to be special, but I think he's going to be really, really good.
I think he'll pair well with Jack Campbell and
I keep forgetting
Campbell.
Iowa. Oh my God, he's so. I mean, that's perfect too, because you got Jihad Campbell, like the current linebacker, and then you got Jack Campbell, more of the old school Sean Lee, Luke. What's his name from Carolina? That's
Kuechly.
Physical.
Oh man,
I'm not going to call him white, but white linebacker that runs downhill really well.
Luke Kuechly.
Oh man! All right, so with the 29th pick, the Washington Commanders. Again, I think they would actually really prefer to trade down unless somebody falls forward. But I think that they're going to do what he does as a head coach. He wants pass rushers. He lost Dante Fowler back to Dallas. That was interesting. I'm curious about that one. Why that happened. But anyway, I like James Pierce Jr. He's solid. He's athletic. He's everything that defense wants. You're going to get 12 snaps from him, probably all in third down. And I think he gets 6 or 7 sacks for the year.
Yeah, I kind of trying to think of like a Tennessee reference here for Washington. I can't remember where their head coaches or their assistant coaches came from, but I mean, I know where Kingsbury came from, but
yeah, you're right. I don't think there's a connection. I'm trying to think.
They have a star quarterback, Jaden Daniels, led them to the conference championship. They had a lot of 1-year rentals though, overall across the whole team. So Dante Fowler, like you were mentioning, came back to the Cowboys. They need to replace him, among other positions on the defensive side. I think their offense is set. This just makes the most sense. I mean, they could always trade out, but they're in win now mode, and this would be a big improvement for that defense.
And again, totally fair if you're like, oh, we are Cowboy fans. Again, I've explained many times, my mom's a big Washington fan. I empathize with her. I laugh, but I don't ever, I would like for her to win, get another Super Bowl before that time. But I also feel like Washington's that team that we see every couple of years, Jacksonville with Blake Bortles. Not that Jaden Daniels is Blake Bortles. Please don't. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you can even say Joe Burrows to the Super Bowl. They're a flash in the pan, and they never can quite recreate that. I guess you could literally say Dan Marino. Dan Marino makes the Super Bowl in year 2. Never gets another Super Bowl. He had great years, but that team, it was a perfect everything happened. And I don't know why, but I just feel that way with Washington. I could see Washington in the Super Bowl next year, but I could also see Washington 5-12, 4-13, injuries, things didn't work right, because you and I have been in the sports world long enough. We're old enough to know that sometimes things come together perfectly and you can never recreate that again.
Yeah, that's very true. It's very hard to win in this league. It has been for a while. It has been really since you and I have watched. Now we've seen dynasties, but it's not like it's been easy on them to continuously be successful. So, what's the old saying? Tomorrow's never promised today.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to live by that, and
especially in the NFL with salary cap and roster churning. This isn't the old school 1991 Cowboys. We're like, hey, you know what? They're gonna be there. Give them a couple more years. Of course, it actually only turned out to be 1 year, but you can't do that now. I mean, Jacksonville, what was that, 2017 now?
Yep. Saxonville.
That team felt like even if they had to, replace the quarterback, that roster was friggin' stacked, defensively especially. And then it just all faded away, Players didn't end up playing as well, or they ended up moving on, things like that. And I just feel like Washington's kind of there. And then the next pick, Buffalo, is on the exact same area, but on the different side. They've been close. And everybody thought last year, including us, that they would take a step back, and they didn't. But then they also didn't even get to the AFC title game. So you start going again, like, okay, Super Bowl. You start going, okay, when does it become its time? And I think I'll say this. I already said I think Broncos win the I almost said AL West. Pitching for Denver will get them through. I think the Broncos win the AFC West. My early pick is I think Buffalo finally breaks through. In fact, I think it's Buffalo and Baltimore in the NFC or AFC title game. But Buffalo needs to make just a simple, smart pick. They have a great defensive tackle. I think they have a defensive tackle that people don't understand how great he is, because in today's era, defensive tackles mean different. They need another defensive tackle. And I think Walter Nolan would be a perfect sidekick to Oliver. I think all of a sudden in a division and in a conference, because of weather and because of teams like Baltimore, you still got to stop the run. Oliver and Nolan would be a really, really tough A gap, B gap defense to run against.
And no offense to Daquan Jones, but at 33, I think he's better served as a rotational defensive
agree.
tackle. He's still good. He started every game. I think he started 16 games last year. But having said that, I love Walter Nolan pick. I told you my only knock on him is he never really had to be a pass rusher at the defensive tackle spot at Ole Miss, but he has that tough as nails. He's tough as an ox. He's very strong. He'll outpower anybody that's
low center of power. You're gonna have, I mean, you could make the case. I don't think he's big enough. I don't have his measures right here, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I don't think he's big enough to be what you'd call the old school 3-4 nose guard, but I think he plays like that. Like he's not there to make sacks. He's not even there for tackle for losses. What he's there for is whenever you try to run A to B, he's clogging the hole, and you're going to have to figure out another way around.
Man, couldn't have said it better myself. You definitely won't run. He seems like the perfect fit for Tampa as far as a run stuffer, but they can stop the run already. So, Nolan is 6'4", 296. So yeah, definitely not a Casey Hampton.
I like him to gain at least 20 pounds, if as long as he can fit on the body. But again, we're in an era now where you don't necessarily need a fat plugger. You just need a guy that can play the gaps. All right, let's go to the 31st pick. This is one of those, man. When you're as close. Oh, I hope Kansas City finally gets through this year. They've been so close. No, when you're as where they're at, you're just trying to, again, and this is where I'll defend. I don't want to say defend. But you like Dallas back in the 90s and New England during their dynasty runs. You're trying to fine tune your team, so it's not necessarily always as easy to draft. I think the Chiefs would love to trade down, but if they can't, they've got to rebuild the offensive line. They've lost 2 Super Bowls because the offensive line sucked. That's legitimately the only reason. And the fact that they even got to the Super Bowl with those offensive line just, again, shows you how great Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes are. And that defense. Let's not forget, the Kansas City Chiefs, I know stat-wise it won't point out in analytics, but I would rate this Kansas City defense over the last 2 years as good as any defense of the 2000s.
That's 2-part front office for drafting players like Trent McDuffie and Nick Bolton, Leo Chanel, Mike Dana, George Karlaftis, players you really don't know too much about, but they make up the core of this outstanding defense. The other parts, Steve Spagnuolo, terrible head coach, but I think he'll go in the Hall of Fame as a defensive coordinator for what he did with the Giants and now what he did with the Kansas City Chiefs. They identified their team. They were pass happy, aggressive on offense. Type team just because he had Mahomes and Tyreek Hill and Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt's back now, but that receiving core. No, I think the receiving core will be really good this year, especially with a healthy Rashee Rice, assuming he doesn't get suspended immediately. He probably will. Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, all healthy. This team's gonna be good. And then I think we get one more great year out of Travis Kelce. He's on, he has a couple years left. But yeah, offensive line was their biggest issue. They were able to eke out wins when they shouldn't have last season. It just came to bite them in the Super Bowl against a team that could rush the passer.
Which is weird. Their 2 losses are literally it's the same teams. All the way down to even the schemes. When you think of what San Francisco, Tampa Bay did with their run game and their, Tom Brady was still really good. That last year was so weird with Tom Brady. I appreciate that the Cowboys beat him, blah, blah, blah. I still contend that last year Tom Brady kind of checked out. Remember, that was the whole divorce thing and all that. But anyway, yeah, they know what they've got to do. I still think, though, that Andy Reid has got to bring back the stretching the offense. I think that's the thing that really hurt them. And it hurts the protection, but that goes all to the point. If you don't feel like you can protect your quarterback, you don't want him standing back there too long. I think Kansas City has to bring back the explosiveness of the offense. You've got all the weapons, you've got the quarterback. So what makes that better? Your offensive line.
Yeah, especially after you traded one of your top 3 offensive linemen to the Bears. They definitely need to address it. They need more than just Donovan Jackson, but this is a start.
Yep, I agree, and I also can see them doing some June 1st post cuts, training camp cuts of guys that have a proven record and might could still work out. And then with the 32nd pick, again, I wholly admit I would now change this. I didn't even think about the fact that Green Bay defensive coordinator is a former Boston College coach, but still, we're just saying for the Eagles. The Eagles are in that weird spot. You won a Super Bowl. You've got a pretty young team. Your salary cap is still pretty manageable. I know there's been some rumors about A.J. Brown and maybe trading him. I do think, honestly, if and we're not even saying about a pick because it's not an offensive guy, I think the Eagles are going to have to figure out a more consistent passing game. That is something they need to worry about. But as long as you have a great offensive line, you have a great running back, you have a great running quarterback, you have threats down the field. For them, they need to just pick and choose their positions. And we both feel that whether it be this guy or not, we both feel that the Eagles are kind of lacking a little bit now at the pass rush.
Yeah, especially after losing Josh Sweat. They addressed their
That's going to hurt a lot more than people realize.
especially if they can't have a suitable replacement. They have Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis along the defensive line. Nolan
Doesn't
Smith.
it feel like I want to make sure. I want to make sure I say this before. I want to make sure I check the stats. I'm not saying those guys haven't been good, but it doesn't feel like they've quite reached the level that they were drafted at. If that makes sense.
Maybe not Jordan Davis. Nolan Smith kind of came on later last season. Let's see what this year holds up. I agree with you on those two. Jalen Carter, everybody was like, "Oh, how the hell he fall in ninth?" Obviously, we know he had the off the field issue, but
Yeah.
I don't want to undersell that. That was pretty bad, but yeah, it just wasn't even fair that Carter went. He is a matchup nightmare. He came in day one being very intimidating. But yeah, Davis, for his size, he should be more dominant, even more dominant than Carter. Nolan Smith, I think it just took him a while, and there was so much depth. He kind of might have taken him a while just to get onto the field.
Yeah.
Nakobe Dean, the same thing. I think 2025, we'll see maybe the actual potential of those guys, and then you'll understand why they got drafted when they got drafted. But hey, last year they addressed their secondary need, not a pressing need, but they needed to get younger at corner, and getting Kenyon Mitchell, getting Cooper DeJean was perfect. And then Reed Blankenship kind of just settled into his role at free safety. He did well. They still
Well,
have
so did what's his name? The linebacker, Braun.
yeah, Zach Bond came over for I think the Saints was like a afterthought, and he became an All-Pro last year.
That's kind of how I feel like, and I'm not saying it's going to happen. That's kind of how I feel like the dude that the Cowboys signed from Titans. Kind of,
Kenneth Murray.
yeah, had a really underrated season last year because it's Tennessee. But I think if you bring him in now, I kind of feel like, and it feels like linebackers are kind of at that point now. Again, we feel like there's going to be more emphasis on the run game, but still, as a linebacker, you got to do both. It feels like linebacker will be that position where you have more of these. I don't want to say 1 year wonders, but you know what I mean. Like they have like a 2 year window and then they kind of fade back.
Yeah, the NFL is in cycles. So yeah, the running backs coming back. So I think there'll be some linebackers that are going to pop up here pretty soon. Their salaries are going to start increasing. But yeah, get best available on the defensive side. They already locked up Cam Jurgens, I think as of today, to I think a 4-year extension. Their offensive line is great. They did lose Mekhi Becton, I believe, to the Chargers.
Yep.
Kind of tackle, drafted as a tackle, converted to guard, kind of came out of nowhere last season for the Eagles. So yeah, get a defensive lineman. Yeah.
All right. We just drafted the NFL. See how easy that was, folks. It only took us an hour and 43. It took us only 27 minutes. It took us an hour and 43 to talk about it because Noe made me drink. To remind everybody, this show is going up on Tuesday, April 22nd. We're going to have a live draft show, the second annual live draft show. You will be in studio Thursday. We're going to be doing some other shows, but we're going to start probably about 30 minutes before the draft, and we're going to go through every first round pick. this is weird because every time I think it's going to be a boring draft, like things will just fall like they should, somebody's going to make a pick or trades will happen. And I feel like, again, I think you're going to see a lot more trading down because I think the strength of this 2024 NFL or 2025 draft, but 2024 college teams or players, I think it's going to be the depth. So I think you're going to have a lot of everybody's just drafting normal till about, again, I feel like Jacksonville is going to be a team that's going to change the draft. Do they go Tyler Warren and all that? But I think you're going to see a lot of teams wanting to trade down because they feel that there's a lot of depth.
Yeah, and honestly, outside of the top 10, everything else from 11 to about 30, about the same quality player.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be all about what you need. And that's why, I think it's really stupid we concentrate so much on, where a player goes. Oh my God, Aaron Rodgers fell. People also need to remember, go look at that draft. It was just one of those years where teams didn't need quarterbacks. He didn't fall because people thought less of him. He fell. Well, I guess a couple people say, oh, we don't want to pick him, but he fell because teams just didn't need quarterbacks. And sometimes that's the most important part. But anyway, we'll see you Thursday night. Until then, he's intern Noah the Pro. I'm Terry the host. This has been OutDrank The Coverage. Check out our Patreon, L for Media Company. Until Thursday.